Our work with shared risk and protective factors really started back in 2006, 2004, 2006. We had a grant from the CDC to create a youth violence prevention plan. And so the idea with that was to really think about what tied different forms of violence together. So we researched lots of different forms of violence, what works to prevent it, and we tried to look for the things that were common.
We looked specifically at the shared protective factors that were identified, and because we knew from the evidence base of sources of strength in the evaluation that it had been effective and impacted school connectedness, we made a theory of change essentially that said, we think that this will impact sexual violence as well, so we're going to pilot it and evaluate it for 2 years and see what kind of outcomes we have related to that.
The most impactful findings of that program is that if implemented with fidelity, it increases participating students' feelings of being connected to their school. It increases their feelings of being connected to positive peers, and it increases their feelings of being connected to caring adults, those are all three are protective factors for suicide, but they're also protective for sexual violence, for teen dating violence, and for bullying prevention.
Once you realize those connections and how different violence types are interconnected, I think that it's fairly clear how we can continue to work in ways toward prevention.
That's the goal of how and why we're doing this work, to do it in a different and hopefully a more effective and efficient way so that it works across all of our programs.
CDC has been very gracious in letting us use documents like connecting the dots to really make the case that these issues are connected, and here's how we can use a particular funding source to have an impact across multiple issues.
Rather than just looking at one silo, we're looking at the big picture as a whole and looking at how different funding sources can feed the same shared risk and protective factors to make a larger outcome in the long run.
Engage your community partners early and often around this, because it is a shift in thinking around particularly sexual violence and thinking about how could programming that has nothing to do with that topic actually impact it.
Even for my peers, in medicine, it's not apparent at first glance how interconnected various forms of violence are. And with education and spelling a few of those things out, where you really see how they overlap.
We actually have a couple of positions within our branch now that not only have the language of shared risk and protective factors in their job descriptions, but it's an expectation that people work across programs. And now our attention is really turning to how can we take what we've learned at the state level and pass that on to the local or community level.
People are thinking differently, and they're using both their money and people resources in a way that they never have before. There's so many potential shared health outcomes that we may see in the long run if we take this novel approach.